Just over 10 years ago, I was eating a predominantly plant-based diet. When I was at home, I was eating only healthy vegan food, but outside I would, if I was at a restaurant, often order the vegetarian option with cheese or eggs, and if I was visiting family or friends, most of the time there would be meat on the plate. Everybody knew that I loved a good steak, especially rare steak with a piece of blue cheese on top. And then one night, I committed to become fully vegan. It has been 10 years, and as you can see, I am still here. I survived, and not only I'm surviving, but I am thriving. There are literally hundreds of reasons why I still think that was the best decision ever. In fact, I just wish I had taken it earlier. And in this video, to celebrate my first full vegan decade, I'm going to share with you 10 of the most vibrant reasons, the ones that are most alive for me, that continue to motivate me and move me forward along this journey. I'm not trying to convince you or anything like that. I just want to share my experience and see if maybe it resonates with yours. I'm going to start by sharing what was most obvious to me at the beginning, which is related to environmental reasons, and then I will move into what I discovered over the years around the health motivations to adopt a healthy, whole foods, plant-based, vegan diet, and I will finish talking about some more ethical and spiritual reasons why I'm so glad I made this decision for myself. If you're already vegan, feel free to share it in the comments below so we can celebrate together this big decision you've made for yourself. If you're working on reducing the amount of animal products that you eat, whether it's for environmental reasons or for health considerations, but you feel that going all the way into healthy vegan territory seems a little bit too extreme and you're not ready for that, that's fine too. I was there for a long time, and maybe it's the right place for you to be for now, and that's okay. Watching this video will help you think about whether you want to eventually make more steps in this direction that, for me, has been extremely satisfying and rewarding as a lifestyle decision. Let's start with the reasons why I started down this path, the environmental reasons. For me, it was a matter of intellectual consistency. I was already concerned about the environment, the climate, biodiversity, and reducing my consumption of fossil fuels was top of my mind. So I was walking and cycling everywhere, using public transportation whenever possible. And at some point, about 12 years ago now, I learned about the environmental impact of animal agriculture. Once I knew that, I had to reduce my environmental footprint further by taking action in reducing the amount of animal products that I was consuming, especially meat. And that was really hard for me. Do I still hold those views? You bet. Yes, I still care about carbon emissions. That's top of my mind, but there's some reasons that reach deeper into me, and I will talk about those first. Reason number 10 is all about biodiversity. Overpopulation is a thing, but the problem of overpopulation is not humans, it's farm animal overpopulation. Humans have pulled off an extremely depressing double feat. First, since prehistoric times, we have managed to crash down the population of wild animals 7-fold. In my own lifetime, the population of wild animals has crashed by 68%. That's a lot. And meanwhile, we have exploded the populations of domesticated livestock animals, like cows, pigs, and especially chickens. Listen to this. The biomass of farm animals on land is now 14 times more than the biomass of wild animals on the entire planet. Which takes me to the next reason. Reason number 9, animal agriculture is a horribly inefficient way to get food. Farm animals require humongous swaths of land, whether it's for grazing or for growing the industrial monocrops that become feedstock. Look at this. 45% of the world's habitable landmass is used for agriculture, and of that, 80% is used for livestock, while supplying only 17% of the calories consumed and 30% of the protein. How come? That's because to get 1 pound of meat, we need to feed an animal 2 to 10 pounds of feed. So instead of eating chicken, why don't we just use those soybeans to make tofu? It will be way more delicious, and this doesn't have salmonella. Using some of that land that is currently dedicated to livestock to grow instead crops for humans would be so much more efficient. And then we can make that collective decision to return a portion of the now non-necessary land to wilderness. Along the way, we would be improving on several environmental factors, including biodiversity, water quality, and climate resilience. My personal decision to be vegan does not weigh heavily into such large-scale issues. However, millions of people drastically reducing their meat consumption makes enough of a difference to open up exciting possibilities and allowing nature to bounce back. Being part of the solution just feels so good. Health reasons came later for me. To be honest, at first, I believed that the benefits of vegan diets were overblown by activists. And then I studied for 2 plant-based nutrition certificates, and I realized that actually the science does support a drastic reduction in the consumption of meat, dairy, and eggs for everybody, with benefits in longevity, quality of life, and disease avoidance. Reason number 8, dairy is icky. I used to love a big chunk of good old Canadian orange cheddar, or a French osso irati cheese, or a glass of cow's milk with a big piece of chocolate cake. But once I started thinking about dairy more seriously, it really turned me off. After breastfeeding my own kids for almost 7 years, I no longer understand how anybody can be attracted to drinking the mammary gland secretions of another species, especially after childhood. People seem to think that cows make milk like apple trees make apples, but that is not how it goes. Cows have to become pregnant and have a baby to make milk. And then, after the first baby is usually taken away, the cow gets inseminated again, and cows are practically always pregnant, which means that their milk naturally contains a lot of progesterone. And that is not the stuff that, on normal times, we should have circulating in our body. If milk was consumed in very small quantities, maybe that wouldn't be a problem. But my generation was taught that we were supposed to have 2 glasses of milk every single day, to say nothing of the average consumption in the United States of over 60 pounds of cheese per year. And cheese is a hyper-concentrated source of milk fats and has, of course, those hormones concentrated in it as well. Isn't that just a little gross? No wonder that the connection between prostate cancer and dairy in particular is becoming increasingly clear. And guess what? There's plenty of calcium in lots of other foods, including greens, beans, certain seeds, and calcium is set tofu in particular, my favorite. So why drink milk anyway? Since I've started working in this area, I regularly hear from clients and people in my audience that even just a 2-week break from dairy has made their joints happier or cleared their skin. And that's kind of obvious now that I think about it, considering how inflammatory dairy products are. If you're curious, just quit dairy for a month, 28 days even, as a tiny experiment. See what happens. Reason number 7. Practically everyone needs to eat more vegetables and beans. Did you know that only about 1 in 10 Americans is eating the recommended amount of vegetables every day? That's ridiculous. There's so many sick people already. We all need to do our best to avoid getting ourselves into the hospital. Everybody knows that eating more vegetables, eating more beans is good for us. And it's now increasingly clear that those eating the greatest quantities of healthy plants have the best health outcomes. When eating following something like the Green Food Guide framework, we find ourselves getting plenty of all the macronutrients like protein, carbohydrates, and healthy fats, while at the same time getting the phytonutrients that fight disease, reduce inflammation, decrease our risk of cancer, and lessen the impact of infection. With every bite, we can get those when we eat vegetables and beans. And at the same time, it keeps our blood vessels squeaky clean, nurtures a healthy gut microbiome, and improves our mental health. What else can you ask for? The vast majority of people eat too many animal foods and too few plant foods. Not enough vegetables, not enough fruit, not enough beans, not enough dark leafy greens. So what we end up doing is filling up the hospitals and the pockets of pharmaceutical companies. Imagine all the cool stuff we could do with that money if we did not have to pay for pricey healthcare. Eat your veggies. Oh, and speaking of disease, reason number 6, dementia sucks. My father passed away with dementia 5 years ago, and now I know so much more about Alzheimer's disease and other brain conditions that not only rob the people that suffer from those diseases of their capacities, their physical strength, their mental equity, but also create such a burden on their loved ones and caregivers. I do everything I can to reduce my own risk of ending up with one of those diseases. We do already know that a diet high in saturated fat is associated with a higher risk of cognitive impairment later in life. However, it's not so much that eating meat, dairy, or eggs will cause dementia, but rather it's that every time we eat animal products, we rob ourselves of the opportunity to eat healthier foods that are packed with phytonutrients. Berries, green, and beans help our brains clear out the heavy metals and pollutants, they prevent amyloid plaque from building, and they keep our tiniest blood vessels squeaky clean, clear of obstruction, preventing the mini strokes that lead to cerebral dementia, for example. Greens are especially strong at preventing dementia. In the China longitudinal aging study from Shanghai, we discovered that those eating greens every day had a 78% lower risk of cognitive impairment. I want to be one of those people. Sticking to a plant-based diet means that I'm more likely to eat more vegetables and in particular more greens every day. Reason number 5, weight management is easier on a plant-based diet. You might think this is a little bit shallow, but I love to eat. I love food. And it's nice to be able to eat more without gaining weight. I can do that thanks to the lower calorie density of plant-based foods. I can enjoy a plate full of vegetables and beans and even get seconds and still have room in my calorie budget for the occasional treat. I would hate having to pay close attention to calories, carb count, portion size in general, and deny myself those seconds. And if once in a while I do want to have something like a donut, well, finding a vegan donut takes a lot of exercise in itself. They're rare, far and few in between, so it makes sure that they're not constantly in my face, and I don't have them very often. Reason number 4 is that moderation is a lot less than most people think. Some people believe that moderation is good in all things. However, most have a skewed view of what moderation actually would be. Small amounts of meat, well, that would mean 1, maybe 2 palm-sized portions of fish or chicken every week. Maybe an egg every few days. Such small amounts of animal products in one's diet would probably not have a huge impact on their health. However, for most people, eating animal products in moderation still ends up being every day, sometimes multiple times a day. They're just really hard to avoid in the standard diet. And again, every time we eat those animal products, we're not eating the healthy plants that fight inflammation, reduce disease risk, and make us healthier. Reason number 3 is that being fully vegan decreases my mental load and decision fatigue. How much meat, dairy, and or eggs should a flexitarian be eating? What amount of meat reduction qualifies as a reducitarian diet? The reasons I've talked about so far lead to the logical conclusion that it is really valuable to decrease drastically the consumption of animal products. It doesn't mean fully cutting out necessarily, but what does it mean in practice? What is one supposed to do when they're at a restaurant or eating at a friend's house or going to a large event where there's a set plated meal for them? If somebody is eating at home 98% of the time and they're in control of practically every food decision, it's one thing. However, on average, Americans today spend half of their food dollars away from the grocery store, which means lots of opportunities for some kind of low-grade social conflict. By choosing to be fully vegan, I reduce my mental load. I avoid decision fatigue. I don't have to think about this anymore. I don't need to make decisions about whether I'm going to eat the animal products or no. I just default to plants all the time. And if there's no vegan option, then that's okay. I just don't eat. And that's happened to me maybe twice in 10 years. That is not a big deal at all compared to the benefits of not having to decide over and over and over again. What made me tip beyond being predominantly plant-based to being fully vegan at the end of the day was ethical and spiritual considerations. It is my commitment to avoid inflicting unnecessary pain and suffering to other sentient beings. You have to know that I come from a family of small farmers. I would definitely not describe myself as an animal lover. Growing up, animals were put on earth to serve us, was the way I was raised to believe. And even today, I don't feel like hugging a cow. But still, I have ethical principles. Reason number 2, life on industrial farms is miserable. It is impossible to overstate the complete and utter misery that animals who are born and raised on factory farms have to put up with. Billions of them are bred selectively to present attributes that benefit humans, but are deleterious to the animal's well-being. Whether it's disproportionately large chicken breasts or completely ridiculously huge udders on cows, or the daily laying of eggs for hens. Billions of beings are born into that existence that is violent from the beginning to the slaughter, and just so that humans can enjoy food that they find familiar, flavorful, or convenient. Jeremy Bentham noted that the question is not, can those animals reason, nor can they talk, but really, can they suffer? And we know for fact that they can, and they do. We can all reasonably agree that factory farms are awful. But what about small country humane farms? Let's talk about it. Reason number one, but it's not the last one, stick with me. Reason number one is that humane meat does not exist. We would love to believe, I'm one of them, that humane animal agriculture is possible. But really, let's face the facts. It is not. First of all, we have to know that the vast majority of consumers are extremely sensitive to the price of food. And to raise animals in conditions that would be somewhat natural, where they would have a lot of space to move around, would require so much land, and land is expensive, and it would drive the cost of meat way higher. And even if we could, at an extremely high price point, create that kind of lifestyle for the animals, then the livestock would be just using more space, consuming more resources, and having a greater environmental footprint. Secondly, humane slaughter is a contradiction in terms. Animals are not stupid. They can hear, they can smell, they can see everything, often better than humans can. Maybe in the best possible circumstances, the first animal walking to the man holding the knife would think, oh, I'm just going to be petted. But the second animal in line will not be fooled. They can sense death, and they would prefer not to die. They would prefer to live. If somebody doesn't care about the animals or does not believe animals to be sentient, they still cannot discount the misery that the human workers in those farms, the human workers in the processing plants are going through. Those jobs are some of the most dangerous ones there are. And no one can be killing hundreds or thousands of animals every single day and come home to their family in a peaceful and joyful mood. Even if so-called humane slaughter existed, would it not take a little bit of strange dissociation to be kind and gentle to an animal who doesn't want to die and then kill them the next minute? That's just weird, and it creeps me out. I prefer not to buy into wishful thinking. Having said all that, the top reason is not a why, it's a why not. There are very limited and narrow exceptions. I'm thinking of people with multiple life-threatening allergies that make it very difficult to be fully plant-based. Totally get it. But beyond those rare cases, we know that the vast majority of people can not only survive, but thrive, and in many cases heal on an entirely plant-based diet. We know that growing plants is more efficient and less environmentally damaging than raising animals. We are aware of the suffering inflicted upon innocent beings for human pleasure and convenience. For me, knowing all that and not taking action was taking a deep toll. I carried the burden of cognitive dissonance for a long time. For a while, I did not have the energy or the brain cycles to really focus on what I needed to do to actually change. But once I was able to, and I made that decision, I instantly felt better. It was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders that I did not even realize was there previously. Everything just felt so right. It clicked into place once my beliefs, my knowledge, and my actions all were in line. And you can experience that too. I just love to help more people eat more plants, whether you're ready to go fully healthy vegan or not. That's fine. I just want to support you so that more of the food that goes in your mouth is made out of vegetables, especially greens, berries, fruit, whole grains, beans, of course, lots of beans, spices, nuts and seeds, and all that good stuff. I want to support you by helping you to decide what's for dinner. Go to veganfamilykitchen.com. Right on that first page, you can download a sample meal plan for a week that will help you sort out dinner. And there's tons of other suggestions in my templates section that you can access right from the top. I encourage you to read my book, Flow in the Kitchen, Practices for Healthy Vegan Cooking every day. Even if, like me, by the way, you don't actually enjoy cooking, you can find the meaning of it, read more about my story, and learn also to cook without thinking. I wish for you to experience all the wonderful, ethical, spiritual health benefits that I've been experiencing from eating a healthy vegan diet. I want to support you. Let's connect. And as for myself, all I wish for is many more decades of this fantastic lifestyle. Thank you for visiting my Vegan Family Kitchen, and I hope to see you again soon.